Okay, folks, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Jeffrey. Did you get everything you wanted? You already had it, didn't you? All I want is retirement. Does that come in a box? No, but it comes on a pink slip. What? I was off to a little bit of a later start, which is understandable considering I didn't get to bed until about after 3 o'clock in the morning. Yes, just a few hours ago. So, yeah, we can't wear this on our head. I'm getting warmed up. It's the warmest day in a week here for sure. It's not that warm, but it's probably in the 50s outside instead of damn near freezing. Let's put this up here. Hopefully it doesn't fall off. There we go. Whew. All right, so I needed to do something that rhymed with Christmas, so we're doing Crusader. So we're going to go ahead and add the drippings to the Crusader. To the Crusader. All right. Yeah, and in order to stay awake until midnight, let's see, what did I do yesterday? I took 2 naps, and I had 3 cups of iced coffee before I went to mass, and that's good because I needed to drive, and you don't need to get in a car accident on Christmas Eve. So everything went well. Let's get a little bit of this stuff right here. There we go. Let's get that going right here. Don't exchange too many gifts these days. Got a set of oath mark rules and some more dice. I don't have enough yet. You don't have enough rules? Oath mark. Why do I feel like that's made by? What's the name of those people that make the excellent stuff in 28mm? Gripping Beast. Sounds like something Gripping Beast would make. Gripping Beast stuff is beautiful. At least their website is beautiful. I used many of their ideas for inspiration for myself in 15mm. Jeffrey, have you ever played Impetus? Have you ever played Impetus? And the reason I ask because I bought the rules. Is that like buying the farm? Not at all. We're going to start with the turret. I bought the rules several years ago. Many years ago, actually. Maybe something like 5 or 6 or something like that. Just out of curiosity. And hadn't done anything with them. I don't want to. Let's be a little bit more intelligent about this. And I've had some people saying, they didn't like it for whatever reason. And I always thought, I could test play the rules because one of the things the thing I like the best about DBA is the size of the armies. I don't see the point in making a big stand like this with twice as many figures, where you can just have the ranges and just play with the same number of DBA figures. So, stand of skirmishers, instead of it being 2 units wide by 2 units deep, just make it 1 unit, like we're used to, a 40 by 20 stand, and then just have all the ranges. Shouldn't you be quartering the ranges? No. No, because it's half in both dimensions. Not played Impetus, seen it played though a bit more involved than DVA. Yeah. I don't have a problem with the DBA scale. It's just the DBA vagueness. Actually, if you play armies that way, some of the DBA armies were larger than the impetus armies because there's many armies that have less than 12 units in them. There is something right here. Bye bye. So if that's how you want to represent the game, then it's actually less units than DBA. But DBA is my first and only foray into the world of medieval and ancients. Okay, I've played one game of a couple games of Lion Rampant. But Lion Rampant seems like a game that's set to appeal to a lot of different folks. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And probably the worst thing about Lion Rampant I've encountered in the 5 or 6 times that I've played it is that every army plays the same, pretty much. There's no huge incentive like, I gotta build, French as opposed to Normans. They're gonna pay exactly the same. And part of the appeal for me for wargaming is playing different people differently. You have to. Be like going to a different country and they all speak the same language. Wow, the null is awful thin here. I gotta change toothpaste. I have some kind of toothpaste that I've been using, and it's creating. And this has happened before. I don't have teeth issues, really, and it makes your teeth sensitive to like cold and stuff. Like I'll drink like cold water and like my teeth feel it. Calling it pain's probably not accurate either. That happened to me, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. That's what it was. It was a different toothpaste, and I think we may have switched toothpaste. And then you switch back, and no issues. Well, that's definitely a gift I would not want. I would not want a new set of rules. Unless it was something you were asking for, like, man, I really wish somebody would give me a set of whatever, you know? I get socks. Could always use card bases with no figures to play a couple of games, find out how it rolls. Did it with DBA, and then added figures to the bases. Teeth sensitivity could be linked to a hairline crack, but not on every tooth. That's what it is. It's like on every tooth, even incisors. You know, and I went to a dentist recently, so I know it's not all of a sudden like all my teeth got cavities. You know, no. I didn't have a first cavity until I was 26. I got good teeth. Unlike my hearing. Huh? Exactly. My hearing's terrible. Not helped by the fact that lots of people mumble. It's definitely a toothpaste. And it usually has to do with like a whitening toothpaste. It'll straighten itself out. That's actually happened to my wife before. Not necessarily with this toothpaste, with this toothpaste, but a different one. She must have switched. We usually buy just whichever one is on sale. I mean, they're all pretty much the same, but I guess they're not. Same thing has happened to me with saline or saline slash storage solution slash contact stuff. When I used to wear contacts, when I first got contacts in the it was close to 1990, something like that. They used to have it was much more complicated, and I've always worn soft ones, but it was like you had to put them in this container, and the little container had like this little this zinc cog that was at the bottom of it, and you would put it in this solution that would make this cog effervesce. I didn't think I was going to use that word today. It would effervesce this, and it would make the liquid bubble, and it would bubble on its way up to the top of it. Just a little container, not much bigger than this. You'd put your contacts in there. There'd be 2 cages, and this would effervesce, and it would somehow clean the protein off of the contacts. And then you have a different thing. A different solution. You would clean these things in and so forth. Now it's all one thing. Actually, there was this one like stickier stuff. You would take your contacts out. You'd put a couple drops of this, and you'd rub them. And then when you were done with that, you'd put them in this. You'd rinse them, and you put them in this effervescent stuff. And then they went to the one liquid does everything scenario, and it's been that way for probably since the mid 90s, if I had to guess. And one of these liquids, I don't know which one it is, unfortunately. I know that the marketing on it is not pretty. I know it's not a Bausch and Lomb product. That as soon as I use this stuff, it burned my eyes. It would irritate my eyes. I don't know which one it is. But it's not Renew. So buy Renew and move on. Good morning, Chris. Can't hang. Just want to wish you Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Chris. And I don't think you're doing much gaming at all, are you? That's okay. Hopefully. Chris Brantley, of course, is the self-deposed imperator of DBA. I don't know if you step down, is that really self-deposing? Well, it depends how you step down. I mean, you step down off of a cliff. Why? You might have actually had some snow. Although I don't think having snow today is probably a good idea. It'd be like, what do you have to do today? Clean up after Mother Nature? No thanks. I'll pass. Now, this looks a little messy, and only because I got my contacts out and I can't fool myself with it. But that little bit of messiness is cleaned up by doing a light dry brush after we're all done with this. So, which we're not going to be done with this anytime soon because they decided to put rivets all over this bloody thing. Effervescence is hold on, I can't see. Nobel is inextricably, wow, I definitely wasn't expecting to say that word today, linked to this time of year. It reminds me of the liver salt tablets dissolving in water after a night on the drink. You know, when my dad was my age, and which I would have been really young. I would have been, how old was my dad when I was born? He was like 13 or 14 years older than I was when I was a dad. But anyways, he always would have Alka-Seltzer for this, Alka-Seltzer for that, Alka-Seltzer for the other thing. Not all the time, but frequently enough that I would remember it. And I don't even know what the hell he used Alka-Seltzer for. I have had it before, and it doesn't taste bad. Liver salts. God, I need to call it something different. Liver salt tablets. My liver hurts. I need some tablets. Liver is just such an ugly word. Some words just have a yucky connotation to some of us. I know people that don't like the word moist. I don't have a problem with it. I'll be bringing my effervescent vitamin C tablets. I think they're effervescent. To Europe. That's how I keep from getting a cold. Huge vitamin C boost. Done. I guess they got different germs flying around there that we don't have here. And vice versa, I'm sure. One thing almost everybody ever warns me about traveling to Europe is pickpocketing. And I'm like, is it that big of a deal? I mean, I've gotten used to in the last 4 years of where I'm putting my wallet in my front pocket now. So I don't wear it in my back pocket anymore. So that helps tremendously. But I'm not worried about it. I just deal with like the same last time I went to New York and didn't have any issues. Like the two girls are up front and I'm in the back. You know? You take zinc tablets to avoid colds. Yeah, boosting stuff definitely works, you know? I mean, maybe not if you take it every day because your body gets used to stuff, but yeah, I'm not worried about getting sick. You know, I just don't want to get symptoms. That's all. Phone theft by moped and electric bike riders is a problem in London right now. Is it? Well, can't you just like knock a person down? It'd be thrilling to knock somebody down off a moped that, you know, somebody who was like a villain, not just some random person. Joke's on them if they take my phone. Mine is protected by a passcode, and you're only going to get pictures of tank porn on my phone. So, I mean, unless you're into tanks, there's really no point in doing that. Electric bike. I know the people on electric power are up to no good. See? You guys have a problem with people getting pushed in front of the subway? Getting plowed on the tube? Yeah, those big cities, I'm not a big city person to begin with. So, and I'm not a very trusting individual. So anytime we've like ridden the subway, which we've only done in DC and New York, we don't stand next to it. And I've always got hands on my daughter to keep somebody from, doing something to her, because then I'm going to have to commit a crime to pay her back. If somebody did something to my daughter, I'm going to end up going to jail. Oh, the front of this turret might look really interesting. It's got all kinds of things that are a pain to produce in a hurry. But it makes it look interesting. Let's not forget the little bolts here on the bottom. I was surprised that the Tamiya panel liners are not any better than this. As a matter of fact, I'd say it's worse because it's just as watered down as this. But it's a much more harsh material where you have to coat the entire thing in like a gloss coat, an acrylic gloss coat, so it doesn't eat at the paint, or so I've read. That's not a big incentive for me to use it. And I used to love their paint. And one of the reasons I liked their paint was because it had the color on the entire top of it. The entire paint bottle had the color on it. I don't know, it was just shitty advertising. And the color on the top of their bottle is pretty representative of what the color looks like. Like it's pretty accurate. Mr. Ben, Merry Christmas to you, man. Good thing I know who you are, because I would have said, that's strange that somebody named Ben Wadi would be celebrating Christmas, but. Ben from the Wadi. Which Wadi? off to a later start today. I didn't get home until I didn't get to bed till about 3 a.m. Went to midnight mass, and it's a longer service than normal, and then we had to drive back here and shower, and hey, the important thing is I stayed awake. That's always the biggest challenge. Is you mean I have to do an event that starts at midnight? Like, wow, that's like, I'd rather get up to start it at midnight, go to sleep, but I took 2 naps. I took a nap around, I guess, 3:30 in the afternoon. And then another one around 9:30. But for us, the night of the 24th is always a bigger deal than today. So, as a matter of fact, there was a time, well, before I was married, we'd do gift exchanges on the 24th. We wouldn't do them on the 25th. But now, we got different traditions now. Now we do Christmas Eve at my mom's house, and then Christmas Day's here. So everybody's going to be bringing things here, and it's just like a all-day event, which would stink if I'd had to go to work tomorrow, but I'm not supposed to. Note my wording. I'm not supposed to go to work until the 2nd. I'm not working the rest of the year. As a matter of fact, I'm only at work for like another 8 days or something like that. 8 work days, or 2nd, 3rd, the whole next week. So that's 7, and then the 13th. And then I'm not working the rest of January. Benwadi, any luck with tracking down fins? No, but I have so many other projects on. I shouldn't find distractions. Yeah, that's all of us, isn't it? Why were you looking for them in 20 millimeter? You getting ready to jump the fence? I'll catch you, man. I'm right here for you. I'll catch you. Jump that 20 millimeter fence. I'll catch you. I've said before, the reason I do 20 mil is when I started this, that's the scale that was, if you wanted to do skirmish, 28 really wasn't a thing for World War II stuff. And 15 hadn't happened yet. And the only 15 millimeter figures that I remember in World War II that had any kind of variety was Old Glory. Old Glory and Skytrax were in cahoots together. I think Old Glory was doing the figures and Skytrax was doing their vehicles. And they had just come out with their Command Decision pack marketing, and their vehicles looked terrible because they had edges that were supposed to be straight and they were lumpy, Well, if somebody said, Tony, you have to play with fins, I would focus on the continuation war. Because first of all, it went on longer. And, the Finns do have some vehicles as opposed to just having hand-me-down Russian captured things. But I've actually never had an interest in the Finns, only because I just don't think that they're different enough to the Germans. I mean, equipment-wise and stuff. I mean, I guess their uniforms are of a German cut, but they're a lot more gray. They're more of a, what would you call it, a mouse gray, a lighter gray. I don't think there's much green in their field gray color. Stonewall and Lancashire do 20 millimeter fins in metal. Lancashire have a sail, but not my favorite figures, although they did my Norwegians. PSC do 3D printed figures. Do Finnish models come with their swastika emblem? Or swastikas of any kind are completely banned in some places, like even the Indian ones. It's not that big of a deal for me. I'd rather than ban swastikas and ban iron crosses. Like, you can't have any iron crosses. That's a problem for, you know, aircraft identification. Checkpoint miniatures. Never heard of those. Okay, we'll drill out the antenna later. All right, we got the front of this one to do. You know, the problem with getting sidetracked in a lot of stuff isn't necessarily the sidetrack, because the sidetrack is fun. But, you know, there's not enough time to go and do everything. And if you don't have time and do everything, that means if you do parts of it, you're not going to have enough to show for it. Well, I'm not jumping around a lot. I'm literally doing one scale, and hell, we're only doing the desert right now. Well, I've been a bit disappointed that I haven't gotten a good answer on my arm of service markings, AOS, on the King's Dragoon Guards, and I haven't seen any vehicles with the arm of service for the King's Dragoon Guards, so I think I'm not going to put any on them. So the only thing really I've got to do on the Marmon Harrington is to do the drippings of other colors. So we've already done the black ones. We've already done this treatment to it. And then just do some research on the vehicle number. You know, I know it's going to start with an F, but that's it. It'll be pretty much ready to go. All the pictures I've seen of the King's Dragoon Guards, there's literally no markings on them at all, and that's a bit disappointing. It's an opportunity to make them look more interesting. Ah, yes, the stomach concert. Maybe it's the coffee and not the other stuff. Okay, no rivets on the back, at least on this model. Okay. One A15 turret done. Now I lost one of these little protectors of the things. I don't think I'm gonna I don't think I'm gonna put it back on. This one will just have one missing. I mean, certainly some of them missed. Some of them were missing, so this will be one of those. And somebody was saying, did a review on this tank on one of the sites. It was like, yeah, they don't give you the little hose that goes between the auxiliary fuel tank and the rest of the tank. Well, you could just make that out of wire. I'm like, well, you can make it out of wire. I'm not making that. There's some things that are important to me and some things that aren't. Like the Armor Fast Panzer 4D does not have a little frame that goes underneath the short gun that pushes the aerials out of the way. Like I made that because like that's important to me that it has that look. The fact that it didn't have a little tube there that goes like that's just not that important to me. We can't worry about everything. And like I said, some of those people on the modeling sites are super anal retentive, and then I'll make sure everything's in the right place, and this is wrong, and kit badge this, and do the other thing, and then when it's time to paint it, they just kind of just spray paint it and move on. I'm like, why go through all that effort and then like not detail it appropriately? I don't know. People have different things that they're interested in. guys watch Tick's video that dropped yesterday? I think where he was like he's gonna work through Christmas. But I guess that's his income. Like, if this becomes the little bit that I do becomes too much of a pain in the ass, I'm not gonna do it anymore. You know? I do this for therapy, not to add more frustration. Yeah, I went to lunch yesterday and I'm like, oh, Tick's got a new video. What is it? It's like about how he's going to work through Christmas. I'm like, holy shit. I actually didn't even know that he was working on those desert things. I just started watching the Crusader thing again for the third time. I'm taking notes this time, though. This explains why he has been filling with philosophical. That's the first thing I thought of too. I'm like, why is he doing all this philosophical stuff? You know, which honestly, it just doesn't interest me. It's a subject matter that doesn't interest me. I really like his. I mean, I like his content. I think he's got. I think he's pretty well balanced. I mean, everybody has their takes on stuff, but I don't really care about the philosophical stuff. Like, I don't care if I don't care if he considers the Nazis socialists or not. I mean, they were bad, so it doesn't really matter, you know. I mean, we have parts of this socialist things that every country has, you know. And I don't usually watch those philosophical things. I can't be interested in everything, so. But he did a poll one time, I want to say in last year, of do you want more of this style? Do you want more of this style? Do you want more of this style? And the one that won out was philosophical videos. So some people are watching his stuff for philosophical videos. I don't really have an interest in that. You know, like I've never read Mein Kampf, and I never plan on reading Mein Kampf or Karl Marx shit or, you know, any of that stuff. I'm just not interested in politics at all. Because no matter who it is that you're reading about or who you think isn't that much of a problem, it's always some person that promises that they're going to do A and they end up doing Q. No matter who it is. So, you know, I don't believe in not doing what you're going to say you're going to do. So, if you have no intention of doing it, then just don't even say that you're going to do it. So I don't like any politics stuff because it's just, you know, false advertising or worse. But I guess it's popular with some people. Some people like to beat a dead horse. The beaters of dead horses. But yeah, that does that does explain why he was doing different kind of videos. Although there's so much of his content I haven't seen that I just finished watching the Crusader one a couple of weeks ago, and it's been out for 6 years. So I got lots of his content I've never seen. You know, and if I really want to sit down and watch his content, there's all kinds of new stuff that just I didn't watch any. I haven't seen the Courland. I've only did a little bit of the Stalingrad. The Stalingrad's just doesn't interest me. It's a little too urban for me. What about your autobiography? Mein Panzerkampfwagen 4 in 1/72nd. Makes me sound like a wereaboo, man. Dirty diapers of the Third Reich. As some people would put it, as some instigators would say it, the defenders of Europe. You moron. I don't believe that there's people that are serious like that. Like, I don't believe that if you watch the episode where he responds to, where Tick responds to somebody who's a promoter of National Socialism, like, I don't believe that person is honest. I just can't believe that somebody, I mean, I know there's some demented people in the world, but I just can't believe in my own little world that, that somebody would, 80 years after what happened would be like, no, they were really the good guys. I cannot believe that people like that breathe. And like I said, I'm not even one of the targeted groups that they were going after. I mean, I guess eventually they go after you once they're running out of everybody else. You know, like, oh, now they're hunting down blonde people with green eyes. Why? Well, because they ran out of the ones that had brown eyes. Eventually you run out of people, but I'll be right back. Well, we just had a Christmas miracle. Before I went to midnight mass, no, before I went to dinner last night at my mom's house, I had made a cup of coffee, and halfway on the way down there, I forgot to drink it. I just put it in the fridge, and I forgot this morning to make, so I've got another cup of coffee already made. Hallelujah. Religious nationalism of any stripe is dangerous. I wonder what would be considered religious nationalism. You consider Americans to be religiously nationalistic? I don't know. I know people don't like that we put American flag on different things. That's I can tell you I don't have very many things with an American flag, but I have one flying. But it's not because I'd go to the grave for this country. It's just the ideas of it's the ideas of what we think this country represents, whether it really represents that or not. Hey, I'm I'm not one of those government funded monopolies. That's. Religious nationalism. Are there any religiously nationalistic people in the UK? I also think it's dangerous if you live in a country and you don't care about the country you live in. Like, I hate it here, then why are you here? You know? Nobody else will take you, or. I couldn't fall asleep the other day and I was watching this video of people, and I'm not going to say Americans because there's stupid people here, but there's stupid people everywhere, okay? You guys don't need, you don't need stupid Americans in the UK to have stupid people there. Like, you already have some homegrown ones. Screwing with a Buckingham Palace guard. It's like, why would you do that? This one guy punches this guy and you don't think he's that big, and he's a big dude, even without wearing the bear, whatever it's called. And he punches this guy straight in the face. Like, man, why would you be disrespectful? That's like being disrespectful at like the tomb of the unknown soldier. Like, why would you do shit like that? Like, did you not have a dad? The Nazis were much worse than religious nationalism because it's like, like I've said this before. When I grew up, I didn't know about the Holocaust. I just knew, Germans bad. They started a war. Like, that's enough of a reason for them to be bad, right? You decided to invade Poland. Why? Because it was there. Like, dude, you're the bad guy. Like, even if you didn't ship any Poles away or anything like that, sorry. You picked on the Poles. Bad guy. I came across a book and I should have taken a picture of it. It was in a bookstore. And it was labeled, it was in Barnes and Noble. Might have even been in the magazine section. And they said, Villains of World War II. And it was half obfuscated by something in front of it. So the first thing I'm thinking is, let's see if somebody has the fucking balls to put Stalin on the cover. And obviously he wasn't the figure that was in the center. We all know who was in the center. And he should have been, and that person should have been in the center. But they did put Stalin on the cover, so there is hope. You could add in the dictatorships, corporate states, such as the Saudi, Iran, and North Korea. Corporate states. Yeah, corporations are... That's my newest found enemy, this corporate takeover horseshit. We're watching a Churchill at war or whatever, and I know there's lots of people that dislike Churchill, but watching that stuff with my daughter so she can get even more used to. the stuff when we get there. Did they opt for Hirohito or Tojo for the Japanese? Oh, I didn't know. They almost always put Tojo. They always put Tojo. Hirohito is just like, oh, he's just a figurehead. No, they had Mussolini. They had a Japanese figure. I don't know who it was. And they had Stalin. I just don't think they should have. I just don't think the Western Allies should have made a deal with Stalin. Fuck him. I mean, he attacked Finland, right? And everybody helped Finland. And then maybe Britain was in such dire straits that they're like, we got to make sure that something happens except this guy. So what happens? What happens if the British don't evacuate Dunkirk? Is it a problem? Think it would. I don't think it would have changed that much. I mean, it wouldn't have been better. It wouldn't have been a better outcome, but I don't see how that affects the Battle of Britain any. And even if you have the Battle of Britain, they got to get through the British Navy, which is, no freaking joke. The UK used religious nationalism whilst building the empire. Well, there's no pictures of Tojo standing with presidents at the White House, so you tend to avoid blaming Hirohito too much. Mary, back at you, Francois. The UK used religious nationalism whilst building the empire. My favorite line, and I'm not a good line memorizer in movies, but my favorite one from, obviously I'm not good at the English language either. I've only had one fist worth of coffee. I can't say 3 fingers. From Last of the Mohicans is when the lieutenant comes in here and it says, you know what we're doing over here, right? Or something like that. And he responds with, we're making the world England. I loved it. All right, we're going to go into controversial territory. Put your big panties on. Is there anywhere that the United Kingdom went in the colonial era that they left it worse than they found it? Notice how I worded that. I mean, they went to some places where there was some severe injustice or, I know that they weren't perfect, but I don't have this idea that, that everything was fine, hunky-dory, and then the European colonizers came over here and made it worse. I just don't. Were they perfect? Absolutely not. Did they have practices that we would be like, oh, I can't believe that they did that now? Probably. But every place they went, there was some horrible shit that was going on. I mean, my people in the New World, my people weren't saints or anything, but there was some bad shit going on here, and we wouldn't have been even somewhat successful if it wasn't for them screwing their neighbors. We couldn't have done it without the neighbors helping them out. It's like, So when anybody says, oh, the Aztecs were, singing Kumbaya, I'm like, fuck them. We should have killed them sooner. Human sacrifice of their own people. Come on, man. There's nothing worse than that. No, Dunkirk might cause a lot of knock-on effects for North Africa with things being moved around. I'm just not a person that goes like, India and go like, man, it would have been a lot better off if the British had never gone there. I'm not one of those people. Maybe I'm just, looking at it from my prejudiced white person outlook, but, because could some stuff have been done better? There's no doubt about it, but, But I'm not, one of these newfangled people that are like, I mean, everybody did that. Man, there's a lot of panel lining on this bloody thing. I was reading one of the accounts. I don't know if it was in online or was in a video or something like that. And one of the generals that was in North Africa had escaped from Dunkirk. I'm like, well, I guess you wouldn't have been there. Somebody else would have been there. I was surprised to find out the Lehigh, the Zionist terror group, never heard of them, reached out to Italy and Germany in the late 30s because they thought the British were a bigger threat to Jews than the Germans were. Well, they obviously were surprised. Lehigh. Are they behind Levi's and knee-high? Jeans and orange soda. You still make knee-high? That was like big in the 70s when we lived in Alabama. Alabama Stan. Or is that the Leahy? Zionist terror group. Oh, those are words you don't see used together. They didn't pay much attention even later. They wanted to kill Churchill in 44. Really? I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it's he was in the right place at the right time. They called themselves terrorists. Okay. Like you alluded to yesterday, when a colonial power leaves, everything goes to hell as competing factions try to assume power. Absolutely. So most places that were part of the empire ended up. Good morning. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Marcus. So, yeah. And then, of course, there's propaganda. People that obviously try to influence things one way or another. Like, I remember when that movie Braveheart came out. I'm watching it. I'm rooting for the British, I'm sorry, the English the whole time. Because it's so skewed. It's like, one side doesn't make any mistakes, and the other guys are like, we got rights to your wife the first night you're married. I'm like, that's just such made up bullshit, you know? Like, call things how they are. Forget the woad thing. Everybody's like, oh, the Scots didn't wear woad. That's what's wrong with the movie. No, there's a lot of things wrong with the movie. Let's. It's a medieval movie. Let's get one thing straight. The people at the top of the pecking order don't give a shit about the peasants. Let's just be honest with that. It doesn't matter who the hell it is the top tier. Yeah, it is. It is. It's just it. Anytime that there is a historical movie that has the opportunity to teach history to people that generally aren't interested in history, and they misrepresent the history, however, in whichever way, it's a disservice. It's a disservice. It'd be like making a DBA video, and people that have never played the game go, "Oh, that's not how you play it. It's like this," and then it just sends a whole bunch of lemmings off the cliff. This whole idea of freedom. Nobody had freaking freedom back then. Nobody. It was just more of like, who do you want whose bitch do you want to be? I absolutely loathe The Last of the Mohicans because in half the battle scenes, one side, Evan, has anyone killed. They have dozens of people fighting, and only one side's even goes down. I knew a guy that was an extra in that movie, or so he said. He ended up playing. I used to know a guy. I don't know what happened to him. He just disappeared. He made uniforms or something like that. He was a uniform maker, and he started in one of the. He was one of the British extras. That's like, yeah, I'm the guy that gets killed by Magua at this such a place, and you could see somebody go down. There's certain things that I find really distasteful in characters that I could never get on their side. Like I can't get, and we all have those things, and they may affect us differently. Hurting children, hurting people that, killing your own children, breaking deals. Like I look at things from a European outlook, but I don't think it's cool to make a deal with natives and then renege on your deal. Like, if they broke the truce and you're like, well, we're not going to agree to it as well, well, that's different. But being the first to break it, like, where's your honor code, dude? Like, I just have a problem with stuff like that. People that do things like that, I'm like, yeah, that's not how you conduct yourself. Bloody keyboard. I meant in the fights, the redcoats are the only ones getting killed. The Indians just run around with God mode turned on. Yeah, well, it's kind of a big boy panties on. It's a bit of an anti-white person movie. I hate that's the that's kind of the feeling that I got from watching it. I was like, you know, and I'm not saying the white people were great to the natives. They weren't, but I mean, you know, you need to consider all sides, you know, as best you can. I just don't believe in making treaties with the natives and then breaking them. Like, why would you sell them guns? Like, okay, we're over here. Like, this is the stuff that, you know, Tony in the 16th century wouldn't have made any sense. We're going to come over here and we're going to take gold from people. Okay, whatever. You know, that's what you want to do, you know. But then, like, we're going to sell them guns. Like, wait a second. Why? We're going to get ourselves killed. I'd keep them, like, you know, like, I wouldn't give them any weapons, you know. That's how you find yourself killed, you know. Like, even now, I'm like, I wouldn't sell our tanks to anybody. I mean, we're probably never going to get into a fight with Australia, but I wouldn't have sold them any M1 tanks. That's just me, you know, but I'm not a corrupt corporation, you know. I hate that Star Wars 3, Anakin gets his arms and legs cut off and caught on fire but doesn't die. And movies should be factual and realistic. Yeah, I did not like that third one because of the whole ridiculous jumping. You know, I want a version of Star Wars, get ready, without the Force. What? What are you talking about? It's stupid. I'm just not a religious zealot type of person. Like, I don't, you know. So yeah, that third one was really over the top with the stuff. But I forget Star Wars exists anymore. They've just everything Disney touches now is just crap. It's just crap. And I've had this conversation with somebody that I know pretty well that is of a darker skin tone than I am. What's it? A person of color. Well, I'm a color too, damn it. And I said, you know, if you're going to be inclusive, and I'm all for, wouldn't that be Rogue One? I didn't like Rogue One when it came out because it was like, okay, we need to have a Hispanic, and we need to have a white girl, and we need to have one Asian, and we need to have a black person, and we need to have it was like, why can't there be like 3 black people? Or, you know, it was like an equal opportunity Star Wars. It was too forced. Like, I saw that immediately. Like, it was too, like, it was weird that way. But I'm all for being inclusive and including other characters of other, you know, that can appeal to other folks, you know, but just changing shit just for the sake of changing things. It's like you're giving somebody who has been what's the correct word, that has not been represented fairly in the past. You're giving them a hand-me-down character. It's like you're screwing the people that used to this character being a certain way, and you're giving the other people who have been didn't have enough of a voice before or represented or whatever a hand-me-down character. Like, just give them a new character. You know, I just, and he was like, yeah, that's kind of how we see it. I'm like, it's kind of obvious, you know. I have heard the U.S. described that 50 third world countries with a fully developed military-industrial complex. Well, you didn't hear that from somebody in the U.S. That's kind of weird. Okay, 50 third world countries. I don't know. Most of our states are more powerful than some of your countries. Don't fuck with us. We probably have more firearms in Florida than all of Europe. Yeah, I don't know. I know there's some states I wouldn't want to live in here. Right, Francois? There's some states you wouldn't want to live in. Like, I found out there was a tank museum in Massachusetts. I'm surprised that people in Massachusetts have enough huevos to have a tank in a museum of theirs. They'd be like, oh, I don't know, it's got a gun on it. I don't know. Like, dude, it's plugged and it's been, you know, there's no ammo for it. It's been out of commission for 80 years. We don't have to pick on other countries. We pick on our states. Let's paint the bottom of this thing. Got to make all these wonderful little details stand out at 2 and 3 feet away. I saw the president-elect was on about buying Greenland again. Not sure how that jives with 36 trillion national debt. So I don't pay attention to anybody, especially when they only show a snippet of a certain thing. And he does go off and say things. But everybody has national debt. And you think, oh, look at the national debt of Japan's. It's all freaking fake. You know, it's just all bullshit stuff, you know. I see that there is a series. I mean, how much could Greenland cost, though, you know? I see that there is a series about Palpatine's early years dropping in January. Tom Hiddleston starring. You know, he might be a great individual. I just don't like him. I just don't like him as an actor. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't like everybody. Facts. I refuse to even buy anything that comes from California. I would dare to try to live there and pay into their tax. You know, the thing is there's decent people everywhere, and there's some people that are just there's California. Other than the earthquakes, I couldn't deal with the earthquakes, and I wouldn't be able to deal with their too many laws, but yet it doesn't solve anything. You know, if you're going to pass all these laws, and it is going to be a utopia, we all want to live in a utopia, but I couldn't live with the earthquakes out there. But the weather's probably better than this. The weather here sucks. Well, it doesn't today. It didn't this week, but I want to live somewhere where there's no bugs. Where's that? Antarctica. And you got these penguins shitting everywhere. Have you opened your Christmas present? Yeah, I know everybody's asleep. California is the 5th biggest economy in the world. See, that's how crappy your little countries are. There's decent people in California. There's some people that I know that are in California that don't like the way they... Just be glad you don't live there. You know, live in a place with, you know... But the question is Denmark even selling? Is Denmark still controller of Greenland? And that tells you how. I mean, if nobody's selling, you can't really buy the country. You know. I'd personally trade California for Canada. Yeah, well, same thing. I mean, Canada has its issues, but there's decent people in Canada that don't like where things are. You know. 59 degrees Fahrenheit in Aberdeen today. Is that your high? That's good. Except it's full of Scots. Oh, man. You know, I'd probably like Scotland if I could just understand what you guys were saying. And, you know, everybody's different. Like, who's your Scottish comedian? Connolly. I understand him pretty well. You know, he's pretty funny, actually. I'm not wearing a kilt. You couldn't pay me enough to wear a kilt. That's not my people. Not my problem. Looks great on girls, though. Well, yeah, as unimaginably horrible as California is, it's still infinitely better than Canada. I don't know. I mean, I went to Canada and I thought it was beautiful. Never eaten better food than in Canada. But that's the part of Canada that I went. Denmark have upped their defensive status on Greenland. I don't know. Listen to the whole speech and see if that's what's really said. The media's manipulating everybody. They just show you parts of what it is. And I'm not saying he doesn't say crazy shit. He says crazy shit. But the media also takes things out of context. You know. But I'll tell you what, the biggest problem with him, in my opinion, isn't what he says, it's how he says it. He doesn't win himself any friends. You know? All right, folks, just wanted to say hello. Hope you get lots of goodies we can chat about for 2025. Enjoy the day. You too, man. We'll see you tomorrow. The trees and the food are not Canada. The government is Canada. Well, this government sucks too. Every government sucks. But you got to have government because otherwise you got, businesses that just don't give a shit going crazy. But if they're in cahoots with the government, then, every country sucks. I think the spirit of the people is an important thing. And I didn't find the spirit of the people in Canada that I encountered lacking at all. What a spirit, the spirit of the people, I mean, like, if you go somewhere and something goes south, fill in the blank, whatever it is, do you sit around and not take a stand and wait for the government to bail you out? Or you're like, fuck this, we're not going to put up with this. And I don't want to live a place where people don't, and I'm not saying be a vigilante, but there's just some things that just shouldn't stand. Like that thing that happened in Germany 2 days ago. They wouldn't have found that guy alive. They wouldn't have found that guy alive. You run over people in a market, they're not finding you alive. You try to take over a plane, they're not going to find you alive. Citizens arrest and execution. Sorry. It's not like it was a harmless person. Like, you literally were trying to kill people. Like, you will be stopped by any means necessary. I know a guy that I ran into that lives off the grid, and he said he had plenty of guns. And he's ex-military, so, I'm working on your PSC Humbers today. Mine are in New Jersey. Making them all Mark IVs. Mark IV, what's a... I was looking at that Micromark list, and he lists all of the Humbers as Mark IIIs, and I know that's not right, because the Mark IIs are just basically made on... What the heck is a Humber Mark IV? They have the 2-pounder in them? Let's see. Humber Mark IV. Okay. I got this group text, and I don't know anybody who's on the group text other than my wife. Humber Mark III, Humber Mark IV, Humber Mark IV. Super cute. That's like Italy, right? And Northwest Europe as well. Yeah, I tell you what I don't like about the Humber Mark II. It looks like it's got a more powerful gun than it really does. And here's a stupid question since you have the model. Can you just. I bet you can't build the same turret. I bet you don't have extra turrets. I like Mickey Mouse camouflage. Mark III was a significant upgrade, wider extended turret. See for 3 men. Mark IV is the final best upgrade, biggest variant. The crew reverted to 3. What did it have before? 2? Well, every version of the Humber looks good, unlike that Staghound's ugly as shit. Humber Mark II Italy. Humber Mark IV Laughing Boy 3. You know, if I was in a vehicle and it got knocked out, I wouldn't rename it the same thing again. I'm just, and I'm not a superstitious person. Two separate turrets in the kit. Okay. Just an attractive vehicle. They've pretty much given up on making any new models ever since they've been doing the 3D printing stuff. I like their stuff. I mean, they're not perfect, but nobody is. They do a lot of things right. Imagine if they give you decals too. Boy, that'd be nice. Those damn Rubicon people. Those Rubicon models, man, they give you all kinds of stuff with them, you know? But it's the wrong scale. And, they're expensive. They're like, what, $40 for one vehicle? Like, that's a bit much. But if those are geared for people that are used to paying Warhammer prices, well, that's a bargain. All right, let's work at this one step at a time. Let's do the rear deck. No, everybody's asleep in the house. I mean, we were in we were in church until very late or very early, depending on how you want to look at it. I'd rather live in the Congo with an AK-47. I don't want to use a Soviet weapon. Sorry. It's a jungle down there. Said you can't drop, man. There's animals you can't drop with an AK-47, man. You need to go at least 7.62 51. Like, I'd never go on a safari unless they're like, okay, here's your FAL. I'm like, all right, let's go now. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go on a safari unarmed. Like, no, there's too many things that like to eat me down there. You'd rather get your drinking water from a river in Delhi than live in Germany. Man, you better have some diapers if you're gonna have an Oh man. Some of those rivers in Southeast Asia though, they basically have bottled water. Because they have so much plastic waste, it's just, all bottles. There's too many things that come in too much freaking just waste. I don't care about, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense for it to be, and I'm not a save the earth kind of person by any stretch of the imagination, but why is there like multiple like charging devices for phones? Like, they should all have the same plug. Like, that way you can keep reusing it instead of like, well, can't use this anymore. Like, why? It's just wasteful, you know? Wasteful's dumb. Like, all those tank models on Plastic Soldier Company, they give you all this extra stuff. I can't throw this stuff away. It's like a sin. Anybody read Brazen Chariots? Is it worth reading? His That guy just came up on the Operation Crusader thing. Mr. Crisp, the crispy dude. Third RTR C Squadron, Third RTR, Fourth Armored Brigade, equipped with honeys. I looked that up. I'm like, oh, and I looked up my research. I'm like, oh, so he was in a honey that had a C name named after American cities like Cincinnati or Columbia or what else? Something else. That worth reading, or is a lot of like, well, on this day we decided to, brew tea and, like, I want tactical details. Why does my packaging have packaging? It's just dumb, right? Like, you go and you buy something at a at one of these, say a place like Sam's Club, right? And you want to buy razors, right? And razors, you get a pack of 24 of them. You know how hard it is to get that thing open? I mean, you got to call in the IRA to get it open sometimes. It's just dumb. Like, did you see that the patent that Sony has for the TV that pauses on an advert, didn't know there was such a thing, until the viewer stands up and does a motion, the advert indicates. They keep it patented so others don't use it. I was a big fan of Sony, and then I realized these Japanese motherfuckers, and I don't mean all Japanese motherfuckers, I just mean these particular Japanese motherfuckers, make things different just to be dicks. Like their phone, their cameras don't use the same memory card, and it's just like, it just makes things difficult. It just makes things difficult. And you pay extra for their name. And I was a big fan of Sony stuff. Don't get me wrong. But I don't have Sony anything because, they just do shit to be, difficult. So they made a TV that, well, I don't watch live TV at all. I mean, we don't have access to it. We don't pay for that cable. Pauses on an advert until the viewer stands up and does a motion. What's the motion? The advert pauses until you go, then you know. They should make a TV that pauses until somebody stands up and goes, get on with it, and then they play the rest of it. I'm not a fan of things being banned. However, I would support banning advertising for attorneys and advertising for medicines, because advertising for medicines drives the price of medicine for everybody, especially people that need it. Oh boy, I'm starting to sound like a socialist. No, but it's true. There's some people that you need a medicine or you're going to fucking die, okay? So why can these people not get that medicine? And there are people that don't deserve to die, So, they haven't made it yet. They keep it on the books so it isn't unleashed into the world. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy person. I'm not one of these people that's like, they've cured cancer. They just don't want people to know. Like, cancer is everything. Your body is going to fall apart anyways. And there's sometimes, there's just things that I just don't, I'm not a conspiracy. I hope I'm right. I hope I'm right. I'm not a conspiracy person. Corporations can't be that evil, can they? There's a lot of things that I hear about. I'm like, there's no way that's true. That's too much work to do that. But I guess some people like to work extra, I think you got to have some kind of government so corporations just don't go hog wild and cut too many corners. Not that, corporations are actually out there being evil. Like, you should see some of the patents that the big social media companies have on the go. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'm more idealistic than that. Naive, whatever. When you read about the stuff corpos did in Central and South America back in the day, it does leave a lot of room for them to get worse and still be better than before. Yeah, that's true. Antarctica is too much work, and yet... God, you'd never get that penguin fish stink off of you, would you? Who is it that has that really interesting flag? Is it Antarctica or is it Greenland? I think it's Greenland. They have this flag that's like half red, half white, and then there's something in the middle that alternates that. I think it's Greenland. Good people are held back by morals. Evil knows no bounds. You know, you're right. Yeah, there's some shit I wouldn't do. There's just some stuff I just wouldn't do. I don't need money that bad. I'm just saying, there's just some stuff that. It's legal to kick puppies. Would you kick puppies? No. Now, if it was like attacking people, yeah, kick it in the next week, but. Are you mean to animals? No, but that mockingbirds can be like, I would just like make them illegal. Like, you can't have mockingbirds anymore. They're on crack. They're crazy. As a matter of fact, my neighbor has a couple cars that he parks outside, and he had these plastic bags that he was tying around the rear view mirrors. And I'm like, that's weird. And then I realized what it is the mockingbird goes, stands on there, sees the rear view mirror, gets excited about its own self, and just, shits all over his car. And I'm like, that's just a dick bird, And they must not be good eating because I've never seen a hawk mess with one. As a matter of fact, I've seen birds of prey being chased down by a mockingbird. Greenland's flag is like Indonesia. Japan and Poland banged, and the result DNA dribble was a little mutated. What's the Indonesian flag look like? I don't remember. Oh, Indonesia's like Poland, yeah. Yeah, except the colors are back-asswards, aren't they? Poland is white on the top, which looks weird. Indonesia flag. Yeah, and it's red on top, and then Poland flag. Yep, they're back-asswards. Yep. Yeah. It's Poland but reversed. Poland should have kept the little Purina thing going. They got like the little Purina flag thing, but it's just 4 instead of 5. I like that. Maybe one day we'll do some Polish stuff, but man, I'm pretty sure I'd do French before I do Poles. Now, it'll be really interesting in about a month when I come back from my European report. I can tell you what I think about England and Spain. From my own skewed American viewpoint. You could do Poles in French uniform for 1940. What's wrong with Poles in Polish uniform? That's what makes them interesting. I don't know. They were French uniforms. I don't know. The French tanks are cute. Polish tanks are cute too. What a great looking vehicle. I've always liked Crusaders. I don't care if they broke down a lot. It's the desert. Everybody breaks down a lot. One of my favorite British vehicles, though, actually two of my favorite British vehicles aren't even World War II vehicles. That's the Chieftain and the Saladin armored car. That is just a cute, sexy little vehicle. It might have been a piece of shit. I don't care. It looks cool. Somebody makes one. Does Airfix make a Saladin? There isn't. If there isn't a pinup girl painted on the side, I don't want to ride. You know, speaking of pinup girls, there's a plane that doesn't get a lot of press, and it's not an unusual plane. I think it's a pretty attractive plane. A B-26. I think a Marauder. It's a good looking plane. The lines of it look really good. A lot of American aircraft would be a lot more attractive if they didn't use olive drab. That is kind of a bummer about it, you know. Yeah, B-26 is an attractive. It's a lot better looking than a B-25. B-25 is an ugly aircraft. What was I going to look? I was going to look up pinup girls now. Let's not look that up. Yep. We haven't won any wars until we stop putting pinup girls on planes. Yep. So I'm reading this book. It's a part of a three-part series. It's called An Army at Dawn. It was recommended to me. And unfortunately, it's only from the U.S. viewpoint. Well, not really from the U.S. viewpoint. It only involves things that the U.S. was involved in Europe in World War II. And this first one is like basically Operation Torch, I think through Tunisia. And then the next one's going to be Sicily and Italy, and the last one's Northwest Europe. And it talks about the other stuff as well. But one of the things that really surprised me, it's written unlike anything I've ever read before. And it's really interesting, but I'm probably a quarter of the way through it, and I'm starting to realize that there's all kinds of stuff that I don't know about it and there's a lot of chaos and things you've never read anywhere before. But the problem is that the author, like the media these days, the media shows both viewpoints, but it doesn't quantify. It doesn't quantify that this particular viewpoint is very obscure, or this is a very rare event that we're reporting on. It just kind of reports it like, there's a 50-50 chance of this happening or this happening. And one of those two occurrences may be extremely, sorry, this is bugging me, extremely rare, but the media doesn't tell you that. And this book, same thing, it doesn't tell you the same thing. It doesn't, something's coming off, and I hope it's not the numbers. Hopefully they're baked on there. And that's what I'm reading this, is this book, and it's talking about all the stuff that went sideways. It highlights all the sideways situations, which makes it really interesting because there's some really unlikely outcomes, but then it doesn't quantify. It's like, this may have only happened one time ever, and it's mentioned in the book. And you kind of get this idea that it's like, like it's happening all the time. Like, one of my gripes with watching war movies is war movies almost always, or used to be, from the American viewpoint. And it always shows the Americans in the Second World War as just a bunch of guys just goofing off. Like, if they were goofing off that much, how were they on the winning side of the Second World War? Yeah, I stopped myself there. How were they on the winning side of the Second World War? But they don't show that, there's stuff that happens, on a squad level in every nation. People goofing around, or, being drunks, or having too much to drink, or, going AWOL, that kind of stuff. As it used to be, they'd only show it from the American viewpoint. So it's an interesting book, but you hear about stuff that just really unusual things that happen. Really, really unusual stuff that happens. Like, guys get trigger happy and they kill some guy's donkey. And I'm like, sure, that happened, but, did it happen in every unit all the time, everywhere? But there's a lot of stuff mentioned in there I've never heard about before. But I'm not an Operation Torch expert, so I am kind of interested when they get to Northwest Europe, which of all the three places is the one I know the most about. If I'm going to find things that are really unique that I've never heard of before. But it's a really interesting way the book is written. It's definitely written in a much different way than I've ever read anything before. I was fascinated by the foreword. Usually the foreword on a book, I'm like, yeah, get on with it. Like, let's get to the meat and potatoes. And it was really interesting the way it was written. And the guy that's narrating the book on Audible is actually doing a pretty darn good job with it. He's got the good. I hope this guy narrates the other two books, because he's actually really good. Whatever his name is, but this book was actually recommended to me by a couple of World War II aficionados. And so far it's been really interesting. But it's definitely all kinds of stuff I've never read before. Paratroops drops that gone awry. Like, I knew there was paratroops that were used on, like, Sicily, but I didn't know they were used in North Africa too. Like, okay, well, that's interesting. Even British paratroops. I'm like, what? The British used paratroops before, D-Day? I mean, you don't read. That's not common knowledge. It's not common knowledge that 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 British paratroopers were used before the 6th Airborne at D-Day. I'll be right back. I gotta go to a little boy's room, and then we'll come back to the Crusader. Okay. Now, I just realized I need some pinup girl art in here. Man, there's some hotties out there, and they're not even inappropriate ones. Oh, that's what made this country great, pinup girls. Okay. This is a long process, but man, it's well worth it. Because not doing this means that all the stuff that's on here is just like wasted. It's, it'd be nice to just give it a black wash and it would get everywhere, but it doesn't work that way. Clara Bow. Let's see here. Clara. It's a bit old school for you, man. It's an old Hollywood scandal. The first It Girl. A bit too 1920s for. Just do a Google image search on Pinup Girl World War II. Just some amazing stuff there. And none of them are what I would call inappropriate. There's something to be said for, not making things inappropriate instead of like, laying it all out there. Like, you like the 1920s looking women? I think that's a decade where women look terrible. And I say it as a general rule because, there's exceptions to everything. But I just think that the stuff that the women wore in the 1920s is just like too not my style. Not a fan of perms. Not a fan of, hey, you need a haircut. Okay, let's use number 3. Oh, man. Well, your grandpappy's tank was nicknamed Rita Hayworth She's closer to what you're looking for. Is she the one that was Latin? I don't know anything about those that black and white movies. One of those girls was Latin and wasn't. You couldn't. Ooh, what's this? And it was because it had a P-51 on it. Let's see. Well, that's inappropriate. Ace in the hole. Like, okay, you can do better than that, man. You don't beat the Nazis by being trashy. I think she was the one that was. I don't understand why people change their name. I think it's kind of like personal. Like I'm not gonna change my name. You know, your grandpappy's tank. What was your grandpappy in? How come you haven't mentioned this before? Maybe you did. I didn't pay attention. Was he a English grandpappy or was he a Americano grandpappy? Yeah, that might be her. Spanish, Romani, mixed with Anglo-Irish. All the anger in one person. Man, don't piss her off or leave your wallet laying around. Oh, man. I've never run into a Romani person. I suspect that's going to change soon. A Chafee. By the way, how do you guys say? Is it Chafee or Chaffee? And there's a road that is in Jacksonville named that, and it's always always heard it pronounced Chafee Road. That's a cheater like tank, man. There's no way that's a light tank. I mean, it is, but that is just like that's way out of anybody's league. That's too good a tank to. That's better than some medium tanks. I'd say it's better than most medium tanks. His unit, F Troop, Second Cavalry, was one of the first, if not the first, to get the Chafee. The non-Jacksvillian way. Okay. Chaffee. Okay. Okay. Always pronounced it Shaffy. Oh, now there's a third alternative. Or Chafee. Oi. All right. How to pronounce. How to pronounce. Well, that's a county. I don't care about the county. There is a county just west of here named after a French general of the American Revolutionary War that the locals swear the name of the county is pronounced Lafette. No. Absolutely, emphatically no. Russian cargo ship sinks in the Mediterranean. What's it doing in the Mediterranean? Um, how to pronounce. Uh oh. cool. Which one is he? Man, this poor guy has had the worst equipment. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just, that photo, the only guy that looks like human is the guy that's in the driver's seat of that Jeep. Which, by the way, it looks like he's got an armored Jeep. That's cool. They give those guys some protection. Which guy is he? Can see his tank just there, half of the Hayworth visible. Interesting. Yep. Excellent. Well, I hope he made it okay. I hope you got to meet him. I never met a grandfather. YouTube pronunciation says Chafee or Chaffee. I guess middle is your grandfather. Okay. The little dude, nah, he just stunk. He's just slunk in the picture a little bit more. Yeah, those poor helmets they made them wear they're probably just practical instead of, but really every tanker's helmet in the Second World War tanker's gear looks silly. I mean the early German one is stupid. They're like, evil bakers. Evil bakers with their beret, oversized beret. I think the British were the best looking ones. They just wore beret and that's it. YouTube pronunciation says Chaffee. Chaffee Road. Chaffee. Yeah, I don't know if I can pronounce it Chaffee Road. It just sounds so wrong. Maybe it is correct. Everybody's been saying it wrong. Anyways. It's a hell of a light tank, man. It's one hell of a light tank. It's got almost as much armor as a Sherman. It's a lot better looking. It's actually a good looking light tank. I don't think a Sherman's very attractive, but the thing that I think makes a Sherman unattractive is the running gear. I think that running gear is just ugly. Where and Chafee's got some good lines to it. Chafee, Chaffee, whatever. I would just say it a different way every time. How about that? That equal opportunity. Chaffee. Chaffee. You know what tank I don't like? American tank I don't like? I don't like the Walker Bulldog. Because I missed World War II, and they always have a model of it at Hobby Lobby, and it wasn't involved in any wars I'm interested in. I guess they were in Korea. Maybe Army of Southern Vietnam used some, or Republic of Vietnam, or whatever the hell they're called. I call them South Vietnam, whatever. Lamo. Not a fan of them. He only spoke of the war once when he got drunk and rambled to my mum once about being three Germans. And rambled to my mum once about being the three Germans and that he had to do it but he was ashamed. Well, I would run into, in the early 90s, I'd run into a fair amount of World War II veterans. And I'd always ask them, like, what they did or whatever. And it varied a lot based on whether they wanted to talk about it, how they viewed the enemy, what they thought about the enemy. Some people were matter of fact. Some people had utter hatred towards people that were trying to kill them. Hey, I can't blame them, you know? I mean, if I'm involved in a war and I gotta go kill the whatchamacallits, and the whatchamacallits are trying to kill me all the time, I'm probably not gonna think very highly of them. That's just me personally. Even though I understand they had a job to do, but I get it, you know? I had one guy he used to come in frequently. He was a bomber. He was in a B-17, or at least he said he was in a B-17, and he really didn't have anything bad to say about the people he was bombing. It's kind of like it was a job to do. There was another guy that fought the Japanese, and he didn't have anything nice to say. But it's almost like if he encountered somebody Japanese in modern day, he'd be like, you know, severe grudges against him. So I think that's a normal reaction. I could totally see somebody who, you know, grew up in the time of World War II in England that would never buy a German product afterwards. I get it. It makes sense to me, you know. I do like the tank and the M41. I don't like the M41. It's out of balance. Barrel's too long to the shape of it. It's probably a good tank. We think it's linked to an incident about coming across a German patrol. I think it was alluded to in the book Patton's Ghost about the 2nd Cavalry. When they reached Czechoslovakia, man, I could barely see that. Hold on, let's get a little closer here. Czechoslovakia, he gave his chocolate rations to the little orphan kids, and they adopted a stray dog. Not sure where it sat on the tank, though. It sat on the poop deck. Yeah, they made it to Czechoslovakia, but then it fell under the Soviet influence. That's got to be a big bummer. Like, man, liberating Europe and then watching the Soviets gobble it all up. Like, just that's got to be like a dick move. But I feel like Roosevelt had too much of a soft spot for Stalin. Dumbass. Need to look into that a little bit more. wonder they shifted to the Sherman from these things, man. It's got all kinds of rivets and things. All kinds of stuff that can go sideways on you. But it looks good. Just ever so subtly. Go through that line, yeah. Get almost all of it off. It's not a true like break. It's like almost like a little bend in the metal there. A crimp. If this was a 3D printed vehicle, these rivets would be a lot more pronounced. However, I didn't see any Crusader 1s or 2s. And any of the options that Chad had to print. And I look good. The crew at Chafee were all friends from the same town and all signed up together in West Haven, Connecticut. Oh, the rich people. Bailey, Erickson, and Wynn. Rich people from West Haven. No, wait, that's what's that place in Connecticut that's Westport is the one I'm thinking of. West Haven. Yeah. Sorry about that. Westport is the hoity-toity. When I went up there a couple of years ago, at this hobby store, it was a legit hobby store. They had a lot of models. I couldn't stay in there and peruse it because they were smoking inside the hobby store. You know, I didn't want to have all the cigarette smoke impregnated on my clothes and then bring it back to the girls that are in the car. Like, you know, I'd smoke them out, you know. You smell like an ashtray. I couldn't believe they were smoking inside the store. Like, I hadn't seen that in decades. And that store had carpet too, so just imagine. Welcome, Hollow. What rule set do you use for World War II, 172nd World War II? All right, let me pull up my picture because I specifically took a picture of it because I get asked about that all the time because people are infatuated with rule sets and there's only 1 million of them. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, by the way, I'm going to show you guys this since I was thinking about it. This is how I'm going to do my Africa Corps vehicles. So we're going to have a big number on it and a small number underneath it. So this is, for instance, this is tank 114. So you have a big 1. This is for the 15th Panzer Division. We'll have a big red 1 or a 2 or, what have you. And then the actual number is going to be underneath it, completely shown on there. Okay. Enough of that. And then the full number will be on the back. I'm not going to do this. I'll have the 114 in big on the back of the turret box. Okay, let's take a look at the rule set. It's called The Face of Battle, and it's out of print. It wasn't out of print when I got it, but it is now. And I might just be easier to pull it up and show you what the cover looks like. Noble Knight has a few copies of it, but with the caveat that if I see something wrong with it, I'm willing to change it. But it's this is what the cover looks like. And if you want to read how it plays, if you look up this person does a really good synopsis of how it plays. And you look up Face of Battle rule set. There's a WordPress site called The Rules We Use, the Face of and they kind of walk through how it plays. So you're infatuated with rule sets. Hey, there's a lot of worse things you could be than that. You like the idea? I might pinch it for those sci-fi tanks as a core. I'd rather have all three big numbers, but I didn't get the design how they decided to look up their things. Look up how they numbered their things. But it's super crunchy. But it just depends what you want to simulate, And I just happened to find out 25 years ago or so, 20 years ago, about that rule set at the same time that I was working on my own rules that weren't going to go anywhere. My own rules for my own use. And these were pretty close. There's a couple things that I just would not skimp on. I'm inflexible about, and that's percentile. It's got to be a percentile set of rules. That's what's in my blood. I actually bought The Face of Modern Battle from a store in Canada. I've not read it yet. So I did a couple of battle things, just trying to familiarize myself with The Face of Battle, and the author's son was on one of my live feeds while I was doing it, and I guess he got word to his dad, and his dad contacted me, and we did a couple back and forths on it, and he said he had a couple of updates to it, and that I might have motivated him to go ahead and publish them. I'm like, okay, well, I really like your rules, And I told him, it's like, they're really close to like what we were coming up on our own. There's a lot of stuff that I like about them. And that was before I played the vehicles. I have played one vehicle battle before then, and I think they need a little bit of polishing. A little bit of... But, I kind of like the idea that you're using a set of rules that are out of print. Because they can't just be like, hey, we're going to release another version of them, like Flames of War. Like, I like this version, whatever. And like, no, we got to change it. Like, crap. And maybe it's not a good change. Or maybe it's not what you like. So. But I like them. It provides the narrative it describes a narrative that I'm interested in reading about. And that's one thing that, after playing another rule set for 18 years, it was a great rule set, but it just didn't provide a narrative that was very interesting. I'm ready to move on to things that are more, provide more of interest. And I have a hard time just picking something up and be like, let me read it and see if I like it. I've got to like play it. I got to play it and figure out and like, okay, do I like what it represents? What's not being represented? Is it moving too slow? Or my favorite one is, do I have any meaningful decisions to make from turn to turn? And I don't know how the Face of Modern Battle works to compare to the Face of Battle. I know that there's no weapons data in it for World War II, supposedly. And I contact them like, listen, I understand that your modern Face of Modern Battle like incorporates a lot of like the mechanics and stuff, but people need some stuff for the Russian front. Like detail, weapons detail. Like you should like release that so that people can get their hands on it. Like I'm gonna do stuff with Italians in North Africa, and there's no Italians in that rule set, but that's not a problem because everybody else is included. It's just a matter of extrapolating the data, and all that stuff is available online. It gotten to the point where I'm looking for 5-game campaigns with inter-game bookkeeping. I wish more games spent time on scenarios campaigns. Have you seen these? Relatively accessible. Let me get the one about North Africa here. This is the particular one for North Africa. Unfortunately, I only make one. And there's linked campaigns that things carry over from everything else. The only thing I don't like about these things, so I don't think the scale of the game, even though it says it's for 20 millimeter and 15, I think the scale of the game is a little too condensed. This is like, for instance, this is a 4x8 table, and but I think it's a starting point for like at least like you got forces that are made by a third party, and they give you kind of win conditions. So there's that to go on, But these are really good. I got 7 or 8 of them, and I'm a big fan of them. So they make Russian front ones, Western Europe. They don't have an Italy one. They only have one for North Africa, and I'm a big fan of them. So they run about $20, and give you the forces on both sides with some variable attachments. Sometimes they've got, they're really small, like this particular one's called Rampaging Matilda. It's literally one infantry squadron in Matilda against a bunch of sleeping Italians. So, but at the beginning, they've got like link campaigns and victory points from one place to the other. Sometimes you carry the forces over from one to another, and sometimes you don't. I think they're well worth the price, and I believe they're available. If you look up skirmish campaigns, I got these back from, well, not this one, but the other ones from Brookhurst Hobbies way back in the day. I don't know if they still carry them or not, but On Military Matters, I believe, carries them, and they ship pretty darn quick, and they're rule agnostic, but they are focused on individual squads. So you don't have any more than, I think the biggest area might have like a platoon on one side, but I'm not interested necessarily in scenarios as much as I am combat vignettes. Just a situation that arises when, it's very tactical. That's just the kind of flavor that I like. I've played other things before, and that's just what I like. But I'm a big fan. I think they're definitely worth the price. Maybe even as a guide of making your own scenarios. So check them out. They probably make 15 or 16 different ones. They even have, I think they got a couple for France. They have a Poland one. Really cool stuff. They have 2 for Kursk. Yeah, I got the two Kursk ones. I've got 3 of the 1941 ones. They don't make any 42 Russia ones, unfortunately, but you can extrapolate that stuff. I've played every U.S. German campaign book from Bolt Action. A couple of the Chain of Command ones. Yeah, I think that they're, it depends what, I think that campaign books are a lot more useful if you're going to use them as somebody's generated them for the purpose of you playing against your buddy. But if you're going to GM things, which is what I am kind of interested in doing at this point, I don't necessarily need to play one of the sides and make decisions. I enjoy just kind of running it. And the campaign books are a little bit more useful from that respect. As you have kind of almost like a neutral party deciding, what constitutes a victory. How can you decide who's actually, winning this type of scenario? I have one of the Chain of Command books, and I was disappointed that when I got it, it had what I would consider a glaring error in it. And, sometimes you look at these books and you're like, well, let me see what the experts say. And then you realize maybe these guys aren't as expert as I give them credit for. We're all human, we all make mistakes, but there's a glaring error in one of the books that I have. I'm like, they didn't have that piece of equipment then, But I'm not interested in playing any tournament stuff anymore. I'm like, if something's patently wrong, I'm like, we're not doing it that way. I don't care what the rules say. Basically, your wargaming consists of my buddy, only guy I game with, flying in for a week to drink and roll dice, not necessarily in that order. Hence 5-game campaigns. Okay. What part of the world do you live in? In a fly-in buddy. I'm actually a fan of playing with one other person. I'm not a fan of this having 8 different people playing. There's too much noise. The more people that play in the game, the more likely you dislike one of them. Right? If you got 10 friends and you can only invite one, you can invite the one you're the most compatible with. I've heard so many stories of like, hey, we got this game group and this one guy's a problem. I'm like, well, why invite him? Why invite that person, or where somebody is turns everybody against each other or what have you? You know, but that's my preference. Go out to dinner with another couple, for instance. I prefer it to be one other couple, not four other couples. Like, you can't talk to anybody. Like these people that go to, like, hey, we're gonna have lunch on Sunday, and it's like 24 people. Like, you're only gonna talk to the people that are right here. Everybody else is just throwing up extra noise and distractions. But that's just be personal. I'd rather deal with people one on one, and not for any nefarious reasons. Some people will be like, I want to do one on one so they can manipulate people. Like, that guy, he said this. I'm not one of. I don't like all the distraction. Okay, we need to do this line of rivets across the top, which isn't very noticeable. Okay, so now we just need to go. This will end up getting a dusting, a very light dusting on the top. Very, and I mean very, very light. Okay, so everything on this side is done. How about let's put a little bit of a line there. Okay, everything all the way in here. We got to go to this side. I think it's time for a photo, even though I'm only going to show you half of it because only half of it's done. And this isn't. We still probably got another 6 or 7 hours on this thing. I don't care. This is my therapy here. Whoop. It's unfortunately that a lot of these Crusader ones use this. They didn't even put anybody in the turret. I guess the turrets were so liable to jam. They didn't do that. All right, let's do this. There. That's, man. It's kicking back too much. Just a really attractive vehicle. I've always liked it. So, actually, you can probably leave the turret on now because there's not a. Well, we'll take this one off. This one will come off, but there's nothing that needs to be any work underneath there. Merry Christmas, Hoffman. It's morning in Texas. It's not even that early. 8. we're off to a late start today. It was up till like 3 in the morning last night. No, this is a Crusader. A Crusader 1 at this point. I still need to do drippings of a different color on it, and gonna give it a nickname, and lots of stuff still left to do to it. Gotta give these things personality so they're fun to use. Not like, here's your spray painted thing, have fun with it. Like, yep, Crusader is. This was the last tank that they used. Well, no, Cromwell was later, but after this they went to the Sherman. These things were apparently really unreliable. Between the tracks and the, I don't know if that's really that fair to. It is a desert environment, but I've always found this as an attractive tank. I've always liked it, especially if you see pictures of British tankers in them. It's a very attractive vehicle. A Crusader for Operation Crusader. Now I don't know if it was called Operation Crusader specifically because of the Crusader tank. I don't think so, because they'd already used the Crusaders before. They'd used them in mid 1941. You've been playing Cold War 6mm lately. I remember seeing the Crusader is a black and white book I had as a kid. Ugh. This is going to take a few days to get finished. And I got 5 more after this one. But I'm actually going to go ahead and call this one. We got Folks Awakening. But I appreciate you guys coming by this morning. And Merry Christmas to all you guys. Hopefully have some time with your family. And I don't have to work today. Unless you really enjoy your job, in which case you should get a pay cut. But this is where we'll leave off next time, and we'll see you guys on the next one. See you, Hollow. Thanks for coming by.